My name is Serafina, and 3 weeks ago I discovered my brother Marcus was getting married. Not from him, not from our parents, but from a Facebook post shared by my cousin. 28 years of being inseparable siblings, and I found out about his wedding through social media. When I called him, his words cut deeper than any knife. Serafina, I'm sorry, but Rebecca doesn't want you there. She thinks you'll cause drama. The wedding was happening in 2 days, and my entire family had conspired to keep me away from the most important day of my brother's life. But before I tell you how I discovered the shocking truth behind Rebecca's hatred and got my ultimate revenge, I need to know, where are you watching from today? If you've ever felt betrayed by family, hit that like button because this story will show you exactly what happens when someone underestimates the wrong person. And trust me, you'll want to subscribe because what I uncovered about Rebecca will leave you speechless. The morning after that devastating phone call, I sat in my kitchen staring at my cold coffee, trying to process what had happened. 24 hours until my brother's wedding, and I was persona non grata. Rebecca had been dating Marcus for 3 years, and while we were never best friends, I thought we got along well enough. Apparently, I was wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Honey, I'm so sorry about this situation. Your father and I tried to convince Marcus, but he's adamant about keeping peace with Rebecca. We'll video call you during the ceremony. Video call me during my own brother's wedding, like I was some distant relative who couldn't afford plane tickets. That afternoon, I decided to drive to my childhood home to collect some photo albums Marcus had requested for the wedding slideshow. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Rebecca's car parked outside. Strange, since she should have been doing last-minute wedding preparations at the venue. I used my spare key and walked in hearing voices from my father's study. The door was slightly ajar, and what I heard made my blood run cold. The trust fund transfer went through this morning, Rebecca was saying. Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. Your parents still don't suspect anything. No, Marcus replied, his voice strained. They think you're just eager to start our life together. Dad was actually touched when you asked about the family financial planning. And Serafina, what about her? She's always been too observant. I needed her away from the wedding because she would have noticed the paperwork I'm having your father sign tomorrow. The power of attorney documents are mixed in with the wedding gift authorizations. My hands were shaking as I processed what I was hearing. Rebecca wasn't just marrying my brother for love. She was systematically stealing our family's wealth. The trust fund Marcus mentioned was our grandfather's inheritance worth over $2 million, which was supposed to be divided equally between Marcus, myself, and our parents' retirement fund. I still feel guilty about lying to Serafina, Marcus continued. She's my sister Rebecca. This elaborate story about her causing drama is necessary, Rebecca cut him off sharply. She works in financial auditing, Marcus. If she saw any of the documents tomorrow, she'd immediately know something was wrong. This way she's safely away, and by the time anyone realizes what happened, the money will be in offshore accounts. I felt sick. My brother wasn't just betraying me by excluding me from his wedding. He was actively participating in robbing our family blind. The inheritance from your grandfather was supposed to secure your parents' retirement, Rebecca continued. They'll never have to worry about money again, they think. Little do they know they'll be depending entirely on Social Security in a few years. And the power of attorney will give me complete control over all family assets. Your father thinks he's signing documents to add me as an authorized person for wedding expenses. In reality, he's signing over legal authority for all financial decisions. I carefully backed away from the door and slipped out of the house, my mind racing. Rebecca had orchestrated an elaborate financial crime, and she had manipulated my brother into being her accomplice. She had specifically excluded me from the wedding, not because of personal drama, but because my professional background would have immediately exposed her fraud. That evening, I sat in my apartment surrounded by legal documents and my laptop. As a financial auditor, I knew exactly what Rebecca was attempting, and I knew it was completely illegal. She was committing identity theft fraud and elder abuse by tricking my 70-year-old father into signing documents he didn't understand. But I also realized something else. I had less than 18 hours before the wedding, when all these documents would be signed, and Rebecca would legally gain access to everything. I called my best friend Jessica, who worked as a private investigator. Jess, I need your help, and I need it fast. What's going on, Sarah? I explained everything I had overheard. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. This is serious federal crime territory, she finally said. But if we're going to stop this, we need concrete evidence. Audio recordings document copies something that will hold up in court. The wedding is tomorrow morning at 10. Then we work through the night. Jessica arrived at my apartment an hour later with recording equipment and a plan. We spent the next 6 hours researching Rebecca's background, and what we found was disturbing. She had been married twice before, both times to older men with significant assets. Her first husband died in a suspicious car accident 6 months after their marriage, leaving her everything. Her second husband was currently in a nursing home with early-onset dementia, and Rebecca had cleaned out all his accounts before divorcing him. She's a professional predator, Jessica said grimly. Your family isn't her first target, and they won't be her last. By morning, we had compiled a comprehensive file on Rebecca's criminal history, but we still needed proof of her current plan. The wedding was in 4 hours. We need to get those documents she's planning to have your father sign, Jessica said. Without them, this is all circumstantial. She'll have them at the wedding venue. She mentioned having Dad sign them tomorrow. Then we crash a wedding. Jessica and I arrived at the wedding venue at 9:15, 45 minutes before the ceremony. The location was beautiful, a historic mansion with gardens where my brother had dreamed of getting married since we were children. It broke my heart that I was sneaking into what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. We had spent the early morning hours perfecting our plan. Jessica would pose as a wedding photographer's assistant, allowing her to move freely around the venue with recording equipment. I would remain hidden but close enough to intervene when Rebecca attempted to get my father's signature on the fraudulent documents. Remember, Jessica whispered as we separated, we need her to explicitly state what the documents are for while your father is present. Otherwise, a good lawyer could argue he knew what he was signing. I watched from behind a row of hedges as guests began arriving. My parents looked beautiful but tired, probably stressed about the family drama they thought they were managing. Several family members I had not seen in months were there, all dressed in their finest clothes, all believing they were celebrating love when they were actually witnessing a crime in progress. Marcus looked handsome in his tuxedo, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. He kept checking his watch and looking around nervously. At one point, he walked close enough to my hiding spot that I could have reached out and touched him. "Where are the documents?" I heard him ask someone on his phone. "Rebecca, people are starting to ask questions about why Serafina isn't here. I'm running out of excuses." So he was having second thoughts. Part of me felt relief that my brother wasn't completely lost to Rebecca's manipulation. At 9:40, I spotted Rebecca in her wedding dress, carrying a manila folder and heading toward my parents. This was it. I activated the recording app on my phone and moved closer, positioning myself behind a decorative pillar where I could hear everything. "Mr. Thompson," Rebecca said sweetly to my father, "I have those authorization forms we discussed. Just a few signatures so I can help manage wedding expenses and future financial planning." "Of course, dear," my father replied. "I'm so glad Marcus found someone who's interested in family financial security." Rebecca opened the folder, and even from my distance I could see multiple documents with highlighted signature lines. "This first one," she said, pointing to a paper, "gives me authority to access the family trust fund for wedding expenses and our honeymoon." That was a lie. I knew from my professional experience that the document she was showing him was a complete power of attorney transfer. "And this one," she continued, "allows me to be added as a beneficiary on your retirement accounts just in case anything happens to Marcus." Another lie. She was having him sign over primary control of his retirement funds. My father reached for his pen, and I knew I had to act. "Dad, stop!" I emerged from behind the pillar, my phone still recording. The entire wedding party turned to stare at me, and I heard gasps throughout the crowd. "Serafina!" my mother exclaimed. "What are you doing here?" Rebecca's face went white, then red with fury. "You were not invited to this wedding, security." "Dad, do not sign those documents," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Rebecca is committing fraud." "That's absurd," Rebecca sputtered. "She's just jealous that Marcus chose me over his toxic family relationships. Really," I held up my phone. Because I have a recording of you explaining how you're stealing our family's trust fund and tricking Dad into giving you power of attorney over all his assets. The entire wedding party fell silent. Marcus stepped forward, his face confused and hurt. Serafina, what are you talking about? Marcus, yesterday afternoon, you and Rebecca were in Dad's study discussing how she needed me away from this wedding so I wouldn't recognize the legal documents she was stealing. She's not marrying you for love. She's marrying you to rob our family blind. I played back a portion of the recording I had made with Jessica's help. We had used the information we gathered to create a realistic conversation that captured the essence of what Rebecca was planning, and her reaction confirmed everything. Rebecca lunged for my phone. That recording is fake. She's trying to destroy my wedding. If it's fake, my father said slowly, then you won't mind if I have my lawyer review these documents before I sign them. Mr. Thompson, Rebecca said, her voice becoming sharp and desperate. We discussed this. These are just standard authorizations. Your daughter is obviously having some kind of mental breakdown. Actually, Jessica emerged from the crowd holding a professional camera and wearing a photographer's vest. I think everyone would be interested to know that Rebecca Martinez, Rebecca Williams, or was it Rebecca Sullivan, has been married 3 times previously, and each marriage ended with her gaining complete control over her husband's assets. Rebecca's composure completely cracked. You don't know what you're talking about. I know that your first husband died in a car accident after you increased his life insurance policy. Jessica continued calmly. I know that your second husband is in a nursing home with dementia after you cleaned out his accounts. And I know that you've spent the last 6 months researching the Thompson family's financial situation and specifically targeting Marcus. Marcus looked like he had been punched in the stomach. Rebecca, is this true? Marcus, baby, they're lying. Your sister has always hated me. Then why? My father asked quietly. Were you so insistent that these documents be signed today during your wedding when my lawyer wasn't available to review them? Rebecca realized she was trapped. Her entire facade was crumbling in front of 100 wedding guests, and there was no way to salvage the situation. That's when she made the worst decision of her life. Fine, she screamed. You want the truth? Your precious family money was going to be mine either way. Marcus is too stupid to manage it. Your parents are too old to enjoy it, and Serafina thinks she's so smart with her little auditing job. I would have made that money work properly. The admission hung in the air like a bomb blast. She had just confessed to attempted fraud in front of 100 witnesses while being recorded. Marcus stepped away from her like she was radioactive. Rebecca, what are you saying? I'm saying that you're all idiots and I was going to take what should have been mine anyway. Should have been yours, my mother asked incredulously. How could our family money ever have been yours? Rebecca's mask had completely slipped now. Because I'm smarter than all of you, I found out about your family's trust fund. I researched your financial situation, and I planned everything perfectly. If your psychotic daughter hadn't stuck her nose where it didn't belong, I would have been rich and you would never have known what happened. The wedding guests were staring in absolute shock. Several people were recording on their phones, and I could see my uncle calling someone, probably the police. Security! Rebecca screamed again. Get these people out of here! This is my wedding! No, Marcus said quietly. It's not. The aftermath of Rebecca's public confession was swift and chaotic. My Uncle James, who was a retired police officer, immediately called his former colleagues. Within 20 minutes, 2 patrol cars had arrived at the wedding venue, and Rebecca found herself being questioned while still in her wedding dress. The wedding guests, initially shocked into silence, began talking among themselves in hushed, urgent voices. I watched my brother stand frozen near the altar, still processing that the woman he thought he loved had been systematically planning to rob his entire family. Ma'am, one of the officers said to me, we understand you have recordings related to this incident. I handed over my phone and explained what Jessica and I had discovered during our overnight investigation. The officer's expression grew increasingly serious as he reviewed our evidence. This appears to be attempted fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse, he said. We'll need formal statements from all family members and we'll be taking Miss Martinez into custody for questioning. As Rebecca was led away in handcuffs, still screaming about how we had ruined everything, I noticed that not everyone in the crowd seemed surprised by the turn of events. My cousin David approached me cautiously. "Serafina, I need to tell you something. I probably should have said this months ago." "What is it, David?" "Rebecca approached me about 6 months ago asking detailed questions about our family's finances. She said she was planning a surprise anniversary gift for your parents and needed to know about their investment portfolio. I thought it was sweet, so I told her about Grandpa's trust fund." My stomach dropped. "She's been planning this for 6 months. There's more," David continued. "She also talked to our cousin Michelle about your parents' retirement accounts, and she had lunch with Aunt Sarah asking about the family property holdings." And I realized that Rebecca's crime was far more extensive than I had initially understood. She had systematically gathered financial intelligence on our entire extended family, not just my immediate parents and brother. "David, I need you to call Michelle and Aunt Sarah right now. Tell them everything that just happened and ask them to write down exactly what Rebecca asked them and when." As David made his phone calls, Jessica approached with additional disturbing news. "Sarah, I just got off the phone with my contact at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Rebecca Martinez has been on their radar for 2 years. She's suspected in at least 7 cases of marriage fraud across 4 states. 7 cases? They've been trying to build a federal case against her, but they needed evidence of her actively committing a crime. What happened here today might be exactly what they need to finally arrest her." My father, who had been sitting silently in a chair nearby, suddenly spoke up. "The documents she wanted me to sign. I need to see them again." Jessica retrieved the manila folder that had been left behind when Rebecca was arrested. My father examined each paper carefully, his expression growing darker with each page. "These documents," he said slowly, "would have given her complete control over not just the trust fund, but also our house, our retirement accounts, and even authority to make medical decisions for your mother and me." The full scope of Rebecca's plan was becoming clear. She had not just intended to steal money. She had been positioning herself to take complete control over my parents' entire lives. Marcus, who had been silent since Rebecca's arrest, finally spoke. "I need to know how long this has been going on." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Rebecca and I have been engaged for 8 months. She's been handling some of our financial planning, including our joint bank accounts." His voice was hollow with realization. "I need to check our accounts." Marcus pulled out his phone and logged into his banking app. After a few minutes, his face went pale. "She's been transferring money out of our joint account for months. Small amounts never enough for me to notice, but it adds up to almost $15,000. "Where did the money go?" Jessica asked. Marcus scrolled through the transaction history. "Multiple transfers to accounts I don't recognize. And there are several large purchases I never approved. Jewelry, expensive clothes, spa treatments." I felt sick realizing how thoroughly Rebecca had manipulated my brother. "Marcus, we need to report this to the police immediately. She's been stealing from you too." As my brother called the officers to report the additional theft, other family members began stepping forward with their own disturbing stories. Aunt Sarah revealed that Rebecca had asked her detailed questions about our grandfather's will and had even requested copies of family legal documents for wedding planning purposes. Cousin Michelle admitted that Rebecca had pumped her for information about which family members might be willing to loan money for wedding emergencies. Even our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who had known our family for 30 years, approached us with a troubling story. "Rebecca came to my house 2 months ago," Mrs. Patterson said. "She told me she was planning a surprise party for your family and needed to know about your daily routines, when your parents left for work, when they went shopping when the house was usually empty." The implications were chilling. Rebecca had not just been planning financial theft, she had been conducting surveillance on our family's daily lives. "She was planning something much bigger than we realized," Jessica said grimly. "This wasn't just about stealing money at a wedding. She was preparing for long-term systematic exploitation of your entire family." By late afternoon, we had assembled a comprehensive timeline of Rebecca's actions over the past 8 months. She had methodically gathered intelligence manipulated family members into providing sensitive information, stolen money from Marcus, and positioned herself to gain complete control over my parents' lives and assets. The FBI agent who arrived to take over the case was amazed by the thoroughness of Rebecca's planning. In 20 years of investigating financial crimes, Agent Rodriguez told us, "I've rarely seen such systematic and calculated fraud." She had backup plans for her backup plans. As we provided our statements to law enforcement, I noticed that our family dynamic was shifting in real time. The crisis had forced us to communicate more honestly than we had in years. My mother approached me as the sun was setting. "Serafina, I owe you an enormous apology. We should have questioned Rebecca's story about why you couldn't attend the wedding." "Mom, you couldn't have known." "Yes, we could have," she interrupted. "We know you. We know your character. The fact that we believed you would cause drama at your brother's wedding shows how much we allowed Rebecca to manipulate our perception of our own family." Marcus joined our conversation looking exhausted and heartbroken. "Sarah, I don't know how to apologize for what I've put you through. Rebecca convinced me that you were jealous of our relationship and that you would try to ruin our wedding. I was so afraid of losing her that I lost sight of everything that actually mattered." "Marcus, she was a professional con artist. She knew exactly how to manipulate your emotions and turn you against your own family." "But I should have known better," he said. "You're my sister. We grew up together. I know who you are, and I should have trusted that knowledge over anything someone else told me." As our family worked through the immediate emotional aftermath of the day's revelations, Agent Rodriguez provided us with additional disturbing information about Rebecca's history. "Based on our investigation," he explained, "Rebecca Martinez has been operating marriage fraud schemes for at least 5 years. She targets men from financially stable families, gathers detailed intelligence on family assets, and then systematically works to gain access to those assets through marriage and legal manipulation." "How many families has she done this to?" my father asked. "We're aware of at least 12 families across 7 states. Your family was actually her most ambitious target to date. The trust fund amount and total family assets represent the largest score she's attempted." The agent's words hit me like a physical blow. Rebecca had not chosen Marcus randomly or fallen in love with him naturally. Our family had been selected as marks in an elaborate criminal enterprise. But what happened next would show us that Rebecca's network was larger and more dangerous than any of us had imagined. 2 weeks after Rebecca's arrest, our family was finally beginning to feel like we had dodged a bullet. The FBI had built a strong case against her. Marcus was recovering from the emotional trauma of realizing his fiancée was a criminal, and we were all working together to repair the damage she had caused to our relationships. That sense of security was shattered when Agent Rodriguez called me with devastating news. "Serafina, we have a problem. Rebecca made bail yesterday and she's disappeared." My blood went cold. "What do you mean she's disappeared?" "She was released on a $200,000 bond, which was posted by someone claiming to be her sister, but we've verified that Rebecca has no living siblings. Someone with significant financial resources helped her escape, and we believe she had an accomplice in your family's circle." The implications hit me immediately. Rebecca had not been working alone. Someone we trusted had been feeding her information and helping her plan the elaborate fraud. Agent Rodriguez, who posted her bail. "The paperwork lists a woman named Catherine Williams, but that identity appears to be fake. Whoever posted the bail used sophisticated financial instruments that suggest professional criminal knowledge." I called an emergency family meeting at my parents' house that evening. As we gathered in the living room where I had grown up, Agent Rodriguez joined us via video call to explain the situation. "Based on our investigation," he said, "Rebecca had access to detailed real-time information about your family's movements, financial planning discussions, and legal strategies. This level of intelligence could only have come from someone with regular access to your family's private conversations." The room fell silent as we all processed what this meant. Someone we loved and trusted had been working with Rebecca. "Furthermore," the agent continued, "the timing of Rebecca's bail suggests that her accomplice knew exactly when to post the money for maximum effect. She was released just hours before we were scheduled to execute search warrants on several offshore accounts." My father spoke first. Agent Rodriguez, what kind of information would Rebecca have needed from an inside source? Specific details about your daily routines, your financial planning meetings, your family's legal discussions about the trust fund, and most importantly, advance warning about today's investigation. I felt sick as I realized what this meant. Someone warned Rebecca that you were closing in on her offshore accounts. Exactly. And that someone also knew enough about federal law enforcement procedures to time her escape perfectly. As Agent Rodriguez ended the call, our family sat in stunned silence. The betrayal by Rebecca had been devastating enough, but the knowledge that someone in our inner circle had been actively helping her was almost unbearable. We need to think about who had access to all the information Rebecca would have needed, I said finally. Marcus looked around the room. Everyone here knew about the trust fund, our daily routines, and the legal planning. But not everyone knew about the FBI investigation timeline, my mother pointed out. I mentally reviewed who had been present during our conversations with law enforcement over the past 2 weeks. The list was short, immediate family members, Jessica, and a few close relatives who had provided statements. What about David? My father asked reluctantly. He admitted that he gave Rebecca information about the trust fund months ago. David's been helping us build the case against Rebecca, I protested. Why would he sabotage the investigation now? Unless, Marcus said slowly, he's been working with Rebecca all along and his confession was designed to gain our trust. The possibility that my cousin David, someone I had known and trusted my entire life, could be Rebecca's accomplice was almost too painful to consider. But as we discussed the timeline of events, disturbing patterns began to emerge. David had been the one to suggest we delay involving law enforcement initially. He had recommended waiting to gather more evidence before contacting the FBI. He had also been present during several family meetings where we discussed our legal strategy. I need to call Agent Rodriguez back, I said, reaching for my phone. Before I could dial my phone, buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop investigating or your family will regret it. Rebecca has friends you haven't met yet. We all stared at the threatening message in shock. Someone's watching us right now, Jessica said, looking around nervously. They knew we were having this conversation. Or someone in this room just sent that message, my father said grimly. The paranoia and suspicion that Rebecca had initially created in our family was back, but now it was justified. We could not trust anyone completely until we identified her accomplice. Over the next few days, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Additional threatening messages arrived. Our family's credit cards were mysteriously compromised, and someone broke into Marcus's apartment while he was at work. They're escalating because they're desperate, Agent Rodriguez explained during our next meeting. Rebecca and her accomplice are trying to intimidate you into dropping the investigation. But the intimidation campaign had the opposite effect. Instead of backing down, our family became more determined to see justice served. That determination was tested when we discovered the most shocking betrayal of all. Jessica called me 3 days later with devastating news. Sarah, I found out who's been helping Rebecca. Who is it? It's David, but not in the way we thought. David isn't Rebecca's willing accomplice. He's another one of her victims. Jessica explained that her investigation had revealed David's gambling addiction, which he had hidden from our family for 2 years. Rebecca had discovered his addiction months ago and had been blackmailing him. Rebecca threatened to expose David's gambling debts to your family unless he provided her with information about your family's finances. Jessica continued. She's been systematically destroying his life while using him to gather intelligence on all of you. I felt a mixture of relief and horror. Relief that David had not willingly betrayed us, but horror at realizing how extensively Rebecca had manipulated and damaged our family. Where is David now? That's the problem, Sarah. He disappeared yesterday. I think Rebecca has him. The investigation had taken a dark turn. Rebecca was not just a financial predator. She was willing to kidnap and threaten family members to protect her criminal enterprise. Jessica, we need to find David before Rebecca decides he's too much of a liability. Agreed. But Sarah, there's something else. Rebecca's bail wasn't posted by an accomplice. It was posted using money she stole from David. She's been forcing him to liquidate his assets to fund her escape. The full scope of Rebecca's manipulation was becoming clear. She had not just targeted my immediate family for financial theft. She had been systematically destroying David's life for months, using his gambling addiction as leverage to turn him into an unwilling accomplice. As we worked frantically to locate David, I realized that stopping Rebecca was no longer just about recovering stolen money or getting justice for fraud. We were now in a race to save David's life before Rebecca decided that eliminating witnesses was easier than continuing to manage them. The ally who had betrayed us was actually another victim, and Rebecca's criminal network was far more dangerous and extensive than any of us had imagined. The breakthrough in finding David came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Patterson, our elderly neighbor, who had previously provided information about Rebecca's surveillance activities, called me with urgent news. "Serafina, dear, I've been watching that woman's social media accounts like you suggested, and I found something disturbing." Mrs. Patterson, despite her age, had proven to be surprisingly adept at online investigation. She had been monitoring Rebecca's various social media profiles and had discovered that Rebecca was still actively posting, despite supposedly being in hiding. "What did you find, Mrs. Patterson?" "Rebecca posted a photo yesterday from what appears to be a vacation rental property. But I recognize the background. It's a cabin at Lake Morrison about 2 hours north of here. My late husband and I used to rent cabins in that same area." Lake Morrison was a remote location with limited cell phone coverage and few year-round residents. If Rebecca was holding David there, it would be the perfect place to keep him isolated while she planned her next move. I immediately called Agent Rodriguez with this information. Within an hour, federal agents were coordinating with local law enforcement to investigate the Lake Morrison area. But before the official investigation could begin, Jessica and I made a decision that would prove crucial to resolving the entire case. "We can't wait for federal bureaucracy," Jessica said. "If Rebecca realizes law enforcement is closing in, she might hurt David or disappear completely." "You're suggesting we go to Lake Morrison ourselves." "I'm suggesting we conduct reconnaissance while the FBI organizes their official response. We're not going to confront Rebecca directly. We're just going to gather intelligence that could help law enforcement." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We packed surveillance equipment and drove to Lake Morrison, planning to locate Rebecca's hideout and report back to the FBI with specific coordinates and situational details. What we discovered at Lake Morrison exceeded our worst fears. Rebecca was not alone. She was working with at least 3 other people, and based on the equipment and setup we observed from a distance, they appeared to be running a sophisticated criminal operation. "This isn't just about your family's money anymore," Jessica whispered as we watched the cabin through binoculars. "This looks like a professional criminal enterprise." Through our surveillance, we could see David tied to a chair inside the cabin, confirming that Rebecca had indeed kidnapped him. But we also observed something that changed everything. Rebecca was on video calls with multiple other people, apparently coordinating similar fraud schemes against other families. "She's running multiple cons simultaneously," I realized. Our family was just one target among many. Jessica was recording everything with her professional surveillance equipment when we witnessed something that would provide the FBI with the evidence they needed to build a comprehensive federal case. Rebecca opened several laptops and began showing her associates detailed files on various families. Even from our distant vantage point, we could see that she had compiled extensive dossiers on dozens of potential targets. "Look at this," Jessica said, zooming in with her camera. "She's got files organized by state family net worth and vulnerability factors." We watched as Rebecca and her associates reviewed their various active cases. They discussed families in Texas, California, Florida, and New York. They compared notes on which tactics worked best for different types of targets. They even had a scoring system for evaluating potential victims based on family dynamics and financial sophistication. "This is a criminal enterprise operating across multiple states," I said. "The FBI has been investigating isolated marriage fraud cases, but they didn't realize they were dealing with an organized crime network." Our surveillance revealed the most crucial evidence when Rebecca began discussing her exit strategy for my family's case. "The Thompson family investigation got too complicated," she told her associates. "But we extracted enough preliminary intelligence to make it worthwhile. Plus, we've got their cousin David as leverage for future operations." What do you mean, future operations? One of her associates asked. David has access to information about extended family members and family friends. We can use him to identify new targets in their social network. The implications were terrifying. Rebecca was not just planning to escape, she was planning to use David to continue targeting our extended family and friends. We need to get this information to Agent Rodriguez immediately, Jessica said, but as we prepared to leave our surveillance position, we encountered the person who would become our most unexpected and valuable ally. A man emerged from the woods behind us wearing forest camouflage and carrying professional surveillance equipment. Our hearts stopped as we realized we had been discovered. Don't move, the man said quietly. I'm Special Agent Michael Torres, FBI undercover. You two have just compromised a 6-month federal investigation. I felt my stomach drop. Agent Torres, we're working with Agent Rodriguez on the Rebecca Martinez case. I know exactly who you are, Ms. Thompson, and what you've just witnessed is going to help us shut down the largest marriage fraud network in the country. Agent Torres explained that the FBI had been conducting a long-term undercover investigation into Rebecca's criminal network. They had identified her as the leader of a sophisticated fraud operation that had stolen over $10 million from families across 12 states. Your family's case was actually the break we needed, he continued. Rebecca got overconfident and started operating more openly, which allowed us to trace her communication networks and identify her associates. What about David? I asked. David is safe. We've been monitoring Rebecca's activities and were prepared to intervene if his safety was threatened. His kidnapping actually provides us with additional federal charges. Agent Torres showed us the scope of the federal investigation. Rebecca's network included professional identity thieves, computer hackers, financial specialists, and even corrupt officials who helped falsify documents. The evidence you've gathered today, combined with what we've collected over the past 6 months, will allow us to arrest the entire network simultaneously. Jessica and I provided Agent Torres with our surveillance recordings, which captured Rebecca explicitly discussing her criminal enterprise and plans to continue targeting families. This is exactly what we needed for conspiracy charges, Agent Torres said. Rebecca just confessed to running a criminal organization, and we have it on video. As we prepared to leave Lake Morrison, Agent Torres coordinated with teams across multiple states for synchronized arrests of Rebecca's entire network. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., we'll execute arrest warrants in 8 states simultaneously. Rebecca Martinez and 23 associates will be taken into custody. The investigation that had started as a family crisis had evolved into a major federal case that would shut down a criminal organization and protect dozens of families from future victimization. But the most satisfying part was knowing that Rebecca's arrogance and overconfidence had ultimately led to her downfall. Her attempt to intimidate our family had actually provided law enforcement with the evidence needed to destroy her entire criminal empire. 6 a.m. The next morning, I received a phone call from Agent Rodriguez that I had been waiting months to hear. Serafina Rebecca Martinez and her entire network are in custody. We executed simultaneous arrests across 8 states and seized over $12 million in stolen assets. The relief was overwhelming, but I needed to know about David. David is safe and receiving medical attention, Agent Rodriguez continued. He's been cooperative with our investigation and will likely receive immunity in exchange for his testimony about how Rebecca's network operates. By noon, the story was breaking on national news. Rebecca's marriage fraud network had been operating for over 7 years and had targeted more than 50 families. The FBI described it as one of the largest domestic fraud operations they had ever dismantled. Marcus and I drove to the federal building to provide final statements and witness Rebecca's arraignment. Seeing her in an orange jumpsuit with her hands cuffed behind her back was surreal after months of her terrorizing our family. The defendant is charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, money laundering, kidnapping, and operating a criminal enterprise, the federal prosecutor announced. Given the scope of the crimes and the defendant's flight risk, we recommend detention without bail. Rebecca's lawyer attempted to argue for reduced charges, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings Jessica and I had gathered, combined with the FBI's undercover investigation, had created an airtight case. Your Honor, the prosecutor continued, The defendant has systematically destroyed families across multiple states. She has stolen life savings retirement funds and educational trusts from hardworking Americans. The emotional and financial damage she has caused is immeasurable. The judge agreed to detention without bail, meaning Rebecca would remain in federal custody until her trial. Outside the courthouse, our family gathered for the first time since Rebecca's initial arrest. David was there looking thin and exhausted, but alive and safe. "I owe all of you an apology that I don't know how to give," David said, tears in his eyes. "Rebecca threatened to destroy my life and expose my gambling addiction to the family. I was ashamed and scared, and I made terrible decisions that put all of you at risk." My father put his arm around David. "Son, you're a victim here, not a perpetrator. Rebecca is a professional criminal who knew exactly how to exploit your vulnerabilities." "But I gave her information that she used to hurt all of you. And now you're going to help law enforcement make sure she never hurts another family," my mother added. "That takes courage." Over the following weeks, our family worked together to repair the damage Rebecca had caused, both financial and emotional. The FBI's asset forfeiture team recovered most of the money she had stolen from Marcus, and federal prosecutors were confident they could recover funds stolen from other families as well. But the most important healing was happening in our relationships with each other. Marcus and I spent hours talking through how Rebecca had manipulated him into distrusting me. "She was so subtle about it," he explained. "She would make little comments about how you seemed jealous or competitive. She would interpret innocent things you said as criticism of our relationship. Over time, she convinced me that you were trying to sabotage my happiness." "Professional manipulators are experts at exploiting existing insecurities," I replied. "She identified that you were worried about family approval of your relationship, and she used that worry to turn you against the people who actually loved you." Our parents also had to confront how they had allowed Rebecca to influence their perception of family dynamics. "We should have questioned why you would suddenly become disruptive or jealous," my mother admitted. "We know who you are, and Rebecca's story about your behavior should have raised red flags immediately." The experience had taught us all valuable lessons about trust communication and the importance of maintaining strong family bonds that can withstand outside manipulation. 3 months after Rebecca's arrest, she was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Her associates received sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years, depending on their level of involvement. The federal judge described their crimes as a systematic assault on family bonds and financial security. During the sentencing hearing, several victims gave impact statements. I spoke on behalf of our family about how Rebecca's manipulation had nearly destroyed our relationships with each other. "Rebecca Martinez didn't just steal money," I told the court. "She weaponized our love for each other against us. She turned family loyalty into a vulnerability that she could exploit. But ultimately, her crimes brought our family closer together and taught us the true value of trust and communication. Today, our family is stronger than it has ever been. Marcus and I have rebuilt our sibling relationship on a foundation of honest communication and mutual respect." David has received treatment for his gambling addiction and has become an advocate for other families affected by financial manipulation. Most importantly, we have learned to recognize the warning signs of manipulation and to trust our instincts about people who seem too interested in our family's private business. The money Rebecca stole has been recovered and returned to our family and the other victims. But the real victory is knowing that her criminal network has been dismantled and that dozens of other families have been protected from becoming her future victims. Rebecca Martinez is currently serving her sentence at a federal prison in Texas. She will be eligible for parole in 20 years when she is 68 years old. As for our family, we gathered last month for Marcus's actual wedding. This time to a woman named Sarah, whom he met through mutual friends and who has spent 2 years earning our trust through consistent, honest behavior. Sarah was present during Rebecca's trial and sentencing, and she understands the importance of maintaining healthy family relationships. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, and filled with genuine love and celebration. Most importantly, everyone who belonged there was present, and no one was manipulating anyone else for financial gain. Sometimes I think about how differently things could have ended if I had not overheard Rebecca's conversation that day or if I had been too intimidated to act on what I discovered. Rebecca's plan was sophisticated and well executed, and she came very close to successfully stealing our family's entire financial future. But I have learned that criminals like Rebecca ultimately defeat themselves through arrogance and overconfidence. She became so convinced of her own superiority that she stopped being careful, and that carelessness provided the opening that law enforcement needed to bring her to justice. Our story is a reminder that family loyalty and financial security are precious things that must be protected, but also that the truth has a way of emerging when people are brave enough to seek it and strong enough to act on it. Have you ever experienced family manipulation or financial betrayal that made you question everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help another family recognize warning signs before it's too late. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories with justice-served endings. And don't forget to share this video with anyone who might benefit from learning about these manipulation tactics. Thank you for listening to my family's journey from betrayal to justice. And remember that sometimes the most important thing you can do is trust your instincts and stand up for what's right, even when it means confronting uncomfortable truths about the people you love. The strongest families are built on honesty communication and the courage to protect each other from those who would exploit your bonds for their own gain.